Our lesson today is going to focus on quartiles and how to create something that's called a box and whisker plot. Okay, in the last couple of lessons we've looked at the measures of central tendency, which are mean, median, and mode. Over the next few lessons we're going to talk about measures of variance, which include range and interquartile range. Okay, range we've done before. To calculate the range of data, you just take the highest and lowest numbers and subtract them. In order to calculate the interquartile range, one must first calculate the four quartiles. A quartile is a value that divides the data set into four equal parts. In order to calculate the quartiles, there are a few steps that you have to follow. Step number 1, rearrange the data in rank order from smallest to largest if necessary. After you've got your data in order, step number 2, you're going to find the median of the data. The median, remember, is the middle. This value is called the second quartile, which is Q number 2. Half of the data is below this value, and half of the data is above this value. After you've calculated the median, step 3, you're going to find the first quartile, which we call Q1. In order to do this, you're going to find the median of only the lower half of the data, all data that's less than the median. In step number 4, you're then going to find the upper quartile, which we call Q3. In order to do this, you're going to find the median of the upper half of the data, only the pieces of data that are bigger than the median. And the last thing that you'll have to do is identify the minimum and maximum data values for your set. In example 1, it says shown below are the scores of 16 students that they received on a math quiz. Find the quartiles using this data. Okay, so we're going to have to identify the quartiles in order to figure out our interquartile range. So I'm going to follow the steps that I just went over above. Step 1, rearrange the data in rank order from smallest to largest if necessary. Looking at my data, I can see that it's already in order from smallest to largest. So I can move on to step number 2, which is finding the median. Okay, the median, remember, is the middle of the data. And they told us that there's 16 pieces of data, so I know there's an even number of data, which means that two numbers are going to show up in the middle. So let's see if we can find those two numbers. So I start at the ends, and I'm just going to move in one at a time until I can find out what the two numbers in the middle are going to be. Okay, and here I am. I can see that the two middle numbers are the 73 and the 74. Now, in order to get the median, I have to average those two numbers. The average of 73 and 74 is 73.5. That's the number that's exactly halfway in between. Okay, so for the median, which we call Q2, it's going to be this value of 73.5, 73 5/10. Now that I've got the median, I'm going to go to step number 3, which is finding the first quartile, Q1. In order to do this, you're going to find the median of only the lower half of the data. So any piece of data that's less than 73.5, that's all of these data values from 52 up to 73. I'm going to find the median of these data. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces of data that are less than the median. Again, that's even, so I'm going to end up with two numbers in the middle. So I'll start at the ends, and I'll just move in one at a time. And I can see here that 66 and 68 are in the middle of the lower half. If I average 66 and 68, that's going to give me a value of 67, which is going to be my first quartile. Okay, Q1 is equal to 67. Now I'm going to find the upper quartile, Q3. And again, I'm looking for the median of only the upper half of the data. So all of the data that's greater than 73.5. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces of data. That's even, so I'm going to get two numbers in the middle. And again, just move in until you find the two in the middle. In this case, it's 82 and 84. And if you average 82 and 84, this value right here, Q3, is going to be 83. 83 is the third quartile. The last thing that I need are the minimum and maximum values. The minimum, the smallest number I can see right here, is 52. And the maximum here at the end I can see is 98. Okay, now I can calculate the interquartile range. The interquartile range, abbreviated IQR, is the difference, meaning I'm going to have to subtract, between Q3 and Q1. calculate the IQR using the values above. Okay, so the Q3 value was 83. And I'm going to have to subtract the Q1 value, which was 67. Okay, and so that's going to equal 16. So my interquartile range, IQR, is equal to 16. The numbers that we calculated in the last example are called a 5-number summary. We call them a 5-number summary because it was 5 numbers. The minimum, the values of Q1, the median, and Q3, and then the maximum. That's 5 different numbers. We call it the 5-number summary. A method of visually displaying the 5-number summary is called a box and whisker plot. In order to make a box and whisker plot, we use the 5-number summary. The box is made up of using the values of Q1, Q2, and Q3, as you can see in my example down here. Okay, this is the box part right here. The left edge is the value of Q1. The right edge is the value of Q3. And your median value, Q2, is going to be somewhere in between Q1 and Q3. The whiskers extend from the box to the minimum and to the maximum values. Okay, these two lines here are called the whiskers. We're going to create a box and whisker plot from the data in our last example. Before we can put our data on our little graph right here, the first thing I'm going to have to do is come up with a scale that I can use so that I can show all of my data. And in the end, we're going to get a picture that looks something like this. Okay, so at the very beginning, I'm always going to start with 0. Okay, and if I look back at my data, I can see that the smallest number in my list was 52. That means there was no data between 0 and 52, so I'm not going to worry about showing all of the numbers between 0 and 52. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put something on my graph here, on my number line, that's called a break. I'm going to break the axis. And to show a break, all you do is draw a little squiggly line up, down, and then up again like that. Okay, this means that I'm eliminating all data between 0 and, in this case, I'm going to start with 50. Okay, there was no data between 0 and 50, so I'm not going to worry about putting those numbers on the number line. Now, the highest number in my list was 98, so I've got to be able to go from 50 all the way up to 98. In order to do that, I'm going to use a scale of 2. Each one of these little lines is going to represent 2. So if this was 50, 52, 54, 56, 58, here's 60. 62, 64, 66, 68, here's 70. 72, 4, 6, 8, here's 80. 82, 4, 6, 8, here's 90. 92, 4, 6, 8, here's where 100 would be. Okay? And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a little dot where each one of the numbers from my 5-number summary are going to be located. Okay? And just to refresh my memory, okay, here were the numbers that I had for my 5-number summary. Okay, the minimum was 52, 67 was Q1, Q2 was 73.5, 83 was the Q3 value, and 98 was the maximum. Okay, so what I'm going to do, okay, I'm going to pick one of these lines up here in order to put a little dot where each number is located. Okay, so I'm going to start with the minimum of 52. Okay, now this line is 50, meaning this line here is 52. So up here on this line, I'm going to put a little dot. There's where 52 would be located. Okay, 67, Q1, 60, 62, 64, 66, 68. In between these two lines would be 67. So halfway in between, and again, I'm going to put a little dot right up here on this line. That's where Q1 would be located. Q2 is 73.5. 70, 72, 74. So in between these two lines, maybe a little bit closer to this line. Okay, right about right here, I'm going to put a little dot. Okay, Q3 was 83, 80, 82, 84. So halfway in between these two, I'm going to put a dot for where Q3 is located. And now the maximum of 98. Well, here's 100. One line back is 98. And there's where my dot is going to go for the maximum. Okay, so now that I know where my numbers are located, now I'm going to draw the box and whisker plot. So I'm going to start with the box. The box, again, is made up from the values from Q1 up to Q3. The left edge is Q1. So this data point was Q1. So I'm going to use my ruler, And I'm going to draw a line that goes straight up to the line above it, down through that point, and straight down to the line below it. And that's going to make it look like a box. Okay, so there it is. There's the left edge of my box. The right edge of my box is Q3, which is this value right here. And again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to draw a little line that goes through that point, like so. Okay, and now I'm going to do the same thing with my median value. Just draw a little line straight down through, like that. Okay, now I'm going to connect all the bottoms and all of the tops. And now I can see the box part. Now all we have to do is draw in the whiskers. The whiskers go from the minimum up to Q1, so I'm just going to draw this line here. The minimum up to Q1, okay? I'm going to stop there. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the other whisker, which goes from Q3 up to the maximum. So just draw a little line that looks like that. And this is a completed box and whisker plot. Each part of the box and whisker plot contains 25% of the data. So from the minimum up to Q1, this is 25% of the data. From Q1 to Q2, this is 25% of the data. From Q2 to Q3, this is also 25% of the data. And from Q3 up to the maximum is the final 25% of the data. Okay? A common mistake. People think, well, this is a smaller section here, so there's not as much data. That's false. Okay? Each part contains the same amount of data. Okay, so again, this is 25%, this is another 25, this is another 25, and this is the last 25% of your data.